Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Lone Oak Farms on Farming Sim 17. It's been a little while since I've recorded an episode, and I notice immediately we have some bales to pick up on our little PDA map, so I got to reacquaint myself kind of with what's going on in here. I see a truck. Oh, looks like we're preparing to harvest. Let me see kind of where we're at. Still growing, not ready for harvest, but we do have quite a few bales to pick up, and it appears, I don't know if I can cycle through all my equipment. Oh yeah, he's kind of in the middle of a course. So why don't we get him going? Hopefully we are on the right course. Actually, you know what? I think I just remembered something. I would like to width adjust. Let me turn that on. Now let me widen her out a little bit. There we go. See that little red, just to make sure I catch everything while it's doing the baling work here. Oh, for corn's sakes. I didn't lower my pickup. Here we go. I'll get him going. I wanted to talk about something a little bit different tonight that I don't know that I've heard in another farming sim video that really was a huge part of the farm, and you'll know what I mean when I say it in a moment. Um, there's a lot of farms that have this, but I don't know that it's that much substantive time has been given to it. So I'm going to visit a little bit about it. I'm going to try to do it while I'm working with bales and whatnot in here, which may be a little bit of a challenge, but I'll try to do it nonetheless. Now, while this guy is baling, um, actually, let me watch him here and make sure he navigates this. Yeah, sometimes he doesn't want to turn quite right when there's a bale in the way. I need to get like one of those mods that shushes the bales out of the way. Yeah, I don't know how he's going to do here as he goes around this one. So before I head out to a picture to show you what oh, okay, he knows what he's doing. All right. Okay, well, we'll turn him loose, and I want to show you a picture of what I'm thinking of. Dogs. This is a horrible picture. Part of the reason I've delayed recording this is because I asked my grandmother for some pictures of the dogs on the farm. I was able to find some, but wasn't a direct angle or what have you. And what it means is we must not have taken pictures of the dogs back in the day, or not that many of them. But this was one of them that we had, and I think and all these episodes are running together, so I can't remember even what I've covered here on Lone Oak episodes versus some of the others that I've done where I've talked about dogs or pets kind of on the farm. They've had a number of dogs up there over the years. One of the earliest ones that I remember as a kid was a Doberman Pinscher, and I had a couple uncles that kind of had a, I don't know what you'd call this, let's just say an ornery streak in him. And this dog, this Doberman, was quite aggressive and always jumping at the end of his chain. I don't know how many chains he broke over the years, but it seemed my uncles enjoyed having me feed the dog. And, to a young kid, it appeared the dog had a jaw that would unhinge and open as big as a shark's, and massive teeth and big bark and all that. And, basically thought I would be eaten if I tried to feed the dog. So I remember some trauma with that. But other dogs, the rest of the dogs, by and large, have been very easygoing in terms of just being around people and random people. I remember this is a big family, so it was common to have grandkids, nieces, nephews coming and going a lot of the times, and these dogs, by and large, took it all in stride, and anybody that showed up was basically a friend, which was a dual-edged sword. If you had a dog there to guard the place. Well, a couple other dogs that I remember. There was one a long time ago that I can't remember the name of, but that was faithful in staying there for many years. And you got to understand, I mean, this is a place where the dogs, with very few exceptions, were not kept on any chains, ropes to speak of, except for the Doberman. I think he was a bit wild compared to some of the others. But for the most part, they were never put under any type of control, if you will. But they just stuck around. They never would run off. Or if they did, I mean, for whatever dogs do at night, they would always return to home base. And and I know I'm pretty sure if we let our dogs go, they would be gone. I know we had a dog a number of years ago. He was a good enough pet, but he had this habit of running off, at odd times of night, and I'd get a call from neighbors a mile away, to come get our dog, and it'd be bad enough to face that in the middle of the day, but when it comes at midnight, it gets a little bit irritating. Um, so there was a Doberman. I don't know if I've mentioned another dog, the name Dexter. I don't remember what kind he was. Invariably, the dogs they had on the farm were what we would call mutts. They didn't really have a particular breed. They were a dog someone else didn't want. I don't know that they ever paid a nickel for any dogs, and I know it's common now, people selling dogs on Facebook or online for hundreds of thousands of dollars, just exorbitant prices. Well, I can assure you that never happened on the farm. They took whatever they could get, and if there wasn't one available, well, they just didn't have one. But I think I mentioned Dexter. He was killed inside their grass cleaner. There was a forklift going in and out and carrying a big old load of seed and accidentally crushed him into the pile. He never gave out so much as a yip, and it was literally the stench of his decay to where they finally figured out and discovered where he had gone. That was one instance where they thought the dog had ran off. I remember another dog called Bridget. The only thing I remember about her is she was a notorious tire biter. I think she even popped a couple tires. Family, we go up there for a family gathering, and she'd nip on the tires, and you deflated a couple of them, much to the delight of some of the family members, I can assure you. But I think eventually she bit one too many tires, and I almost think she was run over. It wasn't that she would just go up to a stationary vehicle and bite the tires. Oh no. She had to do it the dog way, meaning when you were coming in and you were driving in motion, that is when she would attempt to sink her teeth in for some oddball reason. So I think eventually she met a tire that got to her before she could get to it. So a few dogs, and then when I think of the time era, all the dogs that I mentioned were kind of before the time that I was up there, and there were some that came after I was up there, of course. Um, but there was two main dogs that were there that were just awesome when during the time that I worked up there. One of them was Buddy, and there's a picture of him here. I apologize, it isn't a very good picture. It's kind of there's a family picture. It comes from a larger one, and I've cropped them out, so you probably see a hand right here. I think he's some kind of collie. I really don't know my dog breeds all that well, but this is kind of what he looked like. And let me go back in game real quick. Oh, he's done. So, well, I showed you a picture. I maybe can try to do some things in game here while I'm talking about Buddy, who is one of them. Let me get him off his course. And we'll clean up the little bits kind of around the field to satisfy my OCD. Buddy was, I guess, if you can call a dog a gentleman, that would be Buddy. He was very good with children, and when I was on the farm, I had my uncle. One of them in particular was when I started working up there. He was single, and within a year or two, he got married and he started having children. He and his wife, and Buddy was around, and he was just awesome for those little kids. I mean, he would let them poke them, pull on his hair, pull his ears, whatever in the world those kids wanted to do, or any kid, and he would just sit there and take it. Now, if I would have tried to pull that stunt on him, I think he would have bit my hand. But there was something about being around kids that he was just really good that way, and never bothered the kids. And the kids loved him. I'm not trying to imply they were mean to him. It's just, you know how kids can be, with their, because they don't know any better. But he was just a wonderful dog to have around kids. And it's amazing to me sometimes, with pets, how they can have so much of their own individual personality, right? And Buddy was no different on that. And I don't know how we figured out this stuff, over the years. How does anybody figure out what makes their pets tick? He had this funny thing about him where, and I think it was my uncle that figured this out. Why a person would be digging around in a dog's ear, I don't know. He would come and lay his head in your lap, and so you'd be petting him or whatever, and his ears, they would kind of flop open sometimes, and you would see right into his ear canal, which sometimes looks kind of gross or whatever. Let me see what. Square bales is what I'm picking up. Am I in the work? There we go. All right. I probably should do it for real, but what can I say? I'm not very good at bale handling, so we're gonna take care of this the easy way. Um, Anyways, my uncle figured out that Buddy had a fondness for the taste of his own earwax. And it's like, how in the world did you figure that out? I mean, he'd lay his head there, and I don't know if I don't know how if a finger just fell in the ear, just what the deal was. But it was just funny as all get out. You would scratch around in his ears a little bit, and then he would turn his head and he would start licking your finger. I suppose dogs do some pretty disgusting things at times, and maybe this was one of them, but I don't know. Otherwise, it was just one of his funny little proclivities. Another thing that he would do, and I mean, another thing you gotta realize, I worked up there with my two uncles who were young men at the time. Like I say, one of them was just getting married. The other one, it would be a few years before he got married. So he was still living up at the farm, and I was there with three of my, or excuse me, two cousins from the Midwest. So a bunch of young men around, a bunch of testosterone, if you will. Oh, this one goes up extra layers. Um, hmm. Maybe I'll just stop right there. In real life, there's no way they would pack these bales on more than 3 layers. I've never seen them more than 3. We are going to go sell some straw, which I believe, where is the straw? Oh, so I think it's a little old barn. Yeah, right here. Um, Let me see if it's that the only place straws that are able to be sold. Hmm. Aha. Yeah, it appears so. Okay, so the only place we have to offload straw is over at the old barn. So I'll take it over there. That's kind of an interesting story in its own right. Straw bales in real life aren't sold over there. Uh, but I have been in that old barn over there. that was put on the map. But that's kind of probably a story for another time. Oops, autosave. These ways, I hope that's what it is. Okay, I'm ready to, there we go. Wow, that took a long time. Anyway, back to the dogs. Buddy, he also could be induced to sneeze. And I mean, this is just funny as all get out. You know, you'd think, um, and I'd be curious to know in the comments what things you do with your pets to get them to do something that amuses you, but that otherwise wouldn't be natural or necessary. You know, something like a sneeze. You know, if I sneeze, it isn't because I want to sneeze, it's because I've smelled something that I'm allergic to or something like that. And so I bellow off with a sneeze. You know, we all know what the tickle feels like. Well, this dog, Buddy, if you sat there with him and it didn't take very long at all, and you made audibly the sounds of a sneeze, well, by George, eventually he would sneeze, and you could do it multiple times. And so, I mean, sometimes it'd be like worth a dare for Angie to, or you know, I bet I can get the dog to sneeze. Oh, you can't do that. You know, so we had some fun with him doing that to amuse ourselves in the off hours. Another thing you could get him to do, as I recall correctly, is you could get him eventually to bark. And I know there's all sorts of dogs that will do this, but generally the procedure was is you would start whining kind of like a dog, and eventually he would start whining, and then pretty soon he was barking his head off. And you know, I got to say, my grandfather wasn't real wild about that particular technique, and he would kind of grouse about it sometimes. Um, you know, in game, now that I think about it real quick, just pausing on the dogs, I don't know that we've been up here before. There's a Cascade Highway. I'm going behind this super slow pickup truck. We'll go by our blinking light here at the top of the hill. That's Ritchie's Road. And we'll head on down to where the old barn is. And I might have, you know, this may have been in an update I did with the map. I think you can come in here. Let me go in cab real quick. These trees are massive. It's awesome. And then there's a little fence here. Yep, that's right. Oh, now. Am I going to be able to... Maybe I need to get out. Aha. There we go. And I think if we come in here, I think we can settle it right here. I think I extended the... Boom. Oh, I didn't even see how much my money went up. I wasn't paying attention. I created place... Oop, I can't see it real well here. I created a spot for a placeable there, which, like I say, I don't know how long this series will go. But we can put a placeable there at some point. I actually made a couple of them here. I can't remember if this was built into the original map to have an exit here. Maybe it was. Um, I'll just kind of exit through here and head on back to the farm. Go pick up more bales. So that was Buddy. Just a lovable dog, excellent with kids, and when I say gentleman, I mean he ultimately was a gentleman. I still don't know that the family knows where he died. I mean, as he was getting on in years later, I think they feel he just walked off. He knew his time was up and walked off into the brush, and that was that. But I don't know that anybody is... Whoop! Oh, I don't want to be passing this car. There's some traffic on here. As always, let's hope he doesn't turn. There you go. We'll continue on our merry way so we can accelerate down here. The other dog that we had on the farm was named Smokey, and maybe what I'll do, let me just pause so you can get a look at him. Um, Actually, I don't need to just pause. Let me just go find the picture of him. Sorry. Here we go. This is Smokey. He was one half Black Lab, one half German Shepherd, and basically 100% useless, lovable dope. He, as you can see here, I think he's gnawing on a massive zucchini or something that hopefully someone gave it to him to gnaw on. That dog would eat anything, chew anything, and was just a lot of fun. And I wish I had a better picture to show. This one's a little better quality than the one I had of Buddy, but not much better. One that showed his face, but you can probably kind of tell he's got the loose, floppy ears, and let's just say, in the intelligence battle between German Shepherd and Lab, the Lab won. This guy was pretty much a Lab through and through. And honestly, labs are my favorite kind of dogs. Anyhow, oh, so sorry, ma'am, madam, whoever you are, for holding up traffic. But this was just an awesome dog. I really do miss him. Don't remember how he ultimately met his end, but he and Buddy were on the farm approximately the same amount or during the same era. I think he belonged to one of my uncles officially, but he was always up at the farm. And he and Buddy were basically two peas in a pod. I don't recall ever seeing them fight, but they would, let's say, collaborate. And, sometimes we'd wake up in the morning and, it wasn't uncommon to see two wet dogs both sitting out in the yard, and there'd be this furry brown lump kind of between them as the two of them were sitting there panting and resting or whatever. And it's like overnight, it's like the two of them got in their head, hey, let's go down to the pond, let's kill a nutria. Nutria is basically a rodent, and they would do it, and then they would drag it up to the house, as if to show off or whatever. I don't know if they actually ate it or did anything with it, but just dogs being dogs, of course. But being a lab, he did all the things that you would expect out of a lab, and I would say he was just obsessed with catching things, or catching things too. Fetching is what I meant to say. You would throw something, and he would immediately halt. Anytime you had something in your hand, and you would so much as move your hand back, making a motion as if you were going to throw something, he just was instantly on the alert so that he could try to catch sight of where you threw something, and he was very hard to fool. As a lot of times the dogs are, they try to fool them and think you've thrown something, and they're like, try again, buddy, you didn't fool me. And so he was just really hyper alert. And I don't care if you had thrown something 5,000 times and he was plumb wore out near death. If you threw it one more time, he would pick up his weary bones and he would go fetch it one more time. It's like he was just possessed and was driven, like it was just hard coded into his DNA that this is something that thou shalt do at all costs, bar everything else. Um, and it was a hoot. I mean, there was all kinds of things that got thrown, and unfortunately, like I say, he also was a catcher, and so you throw a stick up in the air or a rock, unfortunately, I don't care what it was, food, bolts and nuts, I mean, a tool, he would try to catch it in his mouth. And kind of in later years, we started to see that it was really doing damage to his teeth. You look at the poor guy's mouth, and because I mean, you throw a rock and a piece of gravel or something, and you might not even be intending to throw it to him. You're just chucking a piece of gravel to some other location, and that dog would go after it and pick it up in his teeth, or would try to catch it in his mouth, and he was starting to snap his teeth off. So we stopped trying to throw rocks around him and just did sticks or whatever, because he was, not It didn't seem to slow him down, though. He never seemed to indicate he was in pain. But that is something we noticed kind of over time. In terms of pain, though, you know, like I say, he was 100% dope. Occasionally we would have in our area, there'll be a few porcupines in the area. I remember seeing them a time or two on the farm. I think they're mainly nocturnal, so we didn't see them very often during the day. But this bozo tangles with one in the middle of the night or something. Yeah, I'm gonna pass you on a hill. That's what we're gonna do here. Look at that. How does it feel to be passed by a hay truck? We might even get this other guy passing uphill at a whopping 42 miles an hour. As long as nobody comes down that slope. If I cut it, cut him off. So anyway, there was a porcupine that he must have tangled with overnight. And, I just got done talking about Buddy. He was always smart enough. I don't think he tangled with things that he knew would hurt him. It's like he somehow understood, but his compadre Smokey was lacking a little bit in the brains, and I think he would see something he was interested in and he would just go for it. Well, the poor guy got a whole face full of quills, and I don't think any of them landed in his eye, so it didn't blind him, which was fortunate. But I just remember getting in on the ordeal of trying to remove the quills. And what we were ignorant of is, I think I learned this on YouTube. I can't remember who it was. Maybe some outdoors guy, one of these guys that goes out in the brush with a camera and lives off the land or some such. Anyway, a porcupine quill, apparently you can cut the tip of it off and it relieves pressure inside on the other end of the quill, that's in your flesh. And so if you ever have to pull out a porcupine quill, you should really cut the tip off. Well, we didn't know this, so we did the best we could, all of us trying to hold poor Smokey down. And then one of my uncles had a pliers, and one by one was pulling out all these quills. Well, it probably hurt like Sam Hill, and there was almost a collision. And it probably was doing damage. If those are truly under pressure, because I think the quills are designed to try to take themselves in even further, and yeah, we should have cut the tips off. We just didn't know. Well, he was in a whole lot of pain doing that. I don't remember how many quills there were. There had to be more than 50. I mean, it was a lot that were thrown out at him. So we got all that cleaned up. But it kind of started something funny with him. And I don't know how we learned it. This dog was full of funny stuff. But if you walked up to him with a pliers, just a regular normal pliers, it didn't matter if it was needle nose or anything, just a blunt tipped pliers. And if you would click it at him, holding both handles, just kind of click, click, he would just start barking and growling at it like it was the worst thing he'd ever seen in his life. And my own theory is he remembered that it was a pliers that pulled all those quills out of his hide, and he so hated that experience that he attributed it to pliers. And so when he saw one, he would bark. And I don't know that I've ever seen any other dog take on like that after just a common pliers, but he did. And in terms of other funny proclivities that he had, I mean, like I said, there was a lot of us guys there, lots of testosterone, and we worked hard, long hours, and this was some of the comedy relief. And I did this a number of times, and maybe you'll tell me I'm an abuser down in the comments. But, I mean, I would just laugh myself sick doing this. If you squirted water with him, like take a garden hose and you would squirt it in the air, he would immediately come around and he would try to bite the stream of water. And we're not talking high pressure water. I'd have never done this, with a pressure washer or that kind of thing, because that could have really done damage. This was just a common garden hose, and he would bite at it and bite at it. And if you sat there, oftentimes this would happen, if we were watering the plants or something mundane, up by the house, or, if we were giving a bath to some of the equipment to get the dust off or whatever. Oh, here goes another autosave. But if you just stood there and held it, he would literally inhale the entire stream. He would just sit there and bite incessantly at the stream of water. Meanwhile, he's he's drinking gallons and gallons of it, or so it appeared. I think a lot of it fell out, and he would just keep coming back for more. It's like he just loved doing it for some oddball reason that I haven't been able to figure out. Um, but every now and again, he would get too much water in his system, so he would go off to the side and he would basically throw up a little bit. You would see him just kind of hack it out, some water would come out, but he was so dumb, he would just come back for more. He must not have minded throwing up. I don't know what the deal was, but why that particular activity was so amusing to me as a young kid, I don't know. But it was just funny as all get out to watch him, do all this, and it just provided some comedy relief. He would do the same thing with an air compressor. And I'm not sure why that is. I wonder to a dog, you try to put yourself in their world. You crank up an air compressor. Well, the sound never scared him. I mean, he didn't mind anything about the sound. But then there's this unseen entity that is blowing you in the face. Well, just like with the stream of water, he would sit there and try to bite the stream of air. And I mean, his jowls would be flopping out. He had dog drool flying in all directions. And he was just bound and determined to bite this thing that he could feel, but that he couldn't see. And go figure. I mean, that's just, that's the dog for you. He also had this habit of, he loved going wherever the action was. Like I say, no leash, no chains, no nothing. He was entirely on the loose, so a lot of times when there was a pickup truck and the tailgate was open, he would take a flying leap and jump up in the pickup and ready to go wherever we were headed, whether down to the canyon, out to a field, or whatever. He just wanted to go along. Well, one time, he comes up, there's an open tailgate, and he takes a flying leap, and right at that moment, my uncle, unbeknownst to him, because he hadn't heard the dog come up behind him, he shuts the tailgate. And poor old Smokey just rams right into it's like you couldn't even plan this if you wanted to. And poor Smoke ended up, just ramming right into the end of the tailgate that was just shut on him. So, but I mean, he shook that off. That's one awesome thing about animals. Unlike humans, they never seem to bear a grudge. So he didn't take it personal or say, "Hey, why did you close that on me on purpose?" Let me see. I got kind of a couple notes here of some other things. And this one here, I got to be maybe delicate for YouTube, but it is what it is. When I say this dog was maybe a few bricks shy, I really mean it. Lovable, but not very smart. I think they got him as a pup, and at some point, I mean, he was male, so to try to do the world a favor, my uncles took care of his maleness, and that was taken care of on the farm. I mean, they had other animals they had done this with, but kind of crudely done. I think it was a pocket knife, as I recall. No anesthetic. I think they maybe had some disinfectant. But remember what I said about throwing things up in the air and Smokey catching them? Well, let's just let's just say that this procedure was done with his oysters, and and he ate them. So go figure. That's the brains of good old Smokey. Hard to believe if you haven't seen it, but it's true. Maybe just two more things I think about of Smokey, and I realize I'm going a little bit long, I think, here in this episode. He loved playful yipping. I mean, if you laid down in the, nipping, and yipping too, I guess. But if you laid down in the grass in the yard by the house, you could just count on Smokey coming up, bounding around you a little bit, getting his nose in where your head was and just kind of messing around. He just loved play fighting, and you had to be careful because you didn't want to hurt him. But I remember time and time again, it was my uncle that showed it to me one time. You know, his mouth would be open, you'd see his teeth, he would be barking and all this and that. He would bite things, but if ever a human hand was in his mouth, and I did it myself a number of times, so I know for a fact that it worked, all of a sudden his yipping would stop and he would not bite a human hand. Dogs are just awesome that way. They know when play is play and when it's serious business, I suppose. The one thing I feel bad about with respect to Smokey is something I did with him in the middle of winter one time. The pond, we had a cold snap, and the pond down the hill from the main facility froze over. And there may have been a couple people that went out and ice skated on it. I don't remember. I just remember going down there and walking on it a little bit. And it doesn't happen very often that it freezes over. That particular winter it did, and it had a decent ice cover. Well, the dogs, of course, could walk on it just like we could. Buddy, I don't think, went out there. Buddy wasn't really a fetching type dog anyways, but like I say, to amuse myself, I picked up a stick, and Smokey was there, and I started throwing it out on the ice. And ice, being what it is, very slippery, once again, just laughed my head off watching Smokey try to pick up the stick. He would run just like on normal land, and he would get to the stick thinking he could turn on a dime, just like he could in the grass or whatever, and all of a sudden he would be rear end over his head trying to slow down and stop, and he'd be skidding all over the place. And then of course he'd pick up the stick or whatever I'd thrown out there, and then he would try to accelerate, and it was just funny watching him try to navigate on the ice. And so I did this a number of times, and then there was an area further out that had an open spot, and one time I threw the stick, and it went out in the open spot in the ice, and I was thinking, surely he isn't dumb enough he'll go off the ice into the water. Well, that just wasn't Smokey, and he zipped out there and right off the ice, bailed into the water, because he had to have that stick. I mean, we had done this I don't know how many times, on the pond water in the past, so this was no big deal to him, although this time it was substantially colder. Well, then when he tried to retrieve it, he had the stick in his mouth, he tried to climb back up onto the ice, and he couldn't do it. And that's, like I say, that's when I felt really bad, that the stick went there. But fortunately, very fortunately, the open area kind of went back to the shore, close to the island, where there was kind of a spring in the side of the pond for an inlet of water, and I think it kept it a little bit warmer. And fortunately, Smokey was such a dope that his attention span was short. So I threw another stick over by the shore near this spring. So immediately he starts swimming over to shore to get this other thing that I had thrown. But for a second, I was really, really worried that I was going to have to figure out a way to go get Smokey. I don't think my conscience would have allowed me to let him stay out there. So word to the wise, if anyone ever plays fetch with a dog on the ice, it's all fun and games, but try to notice if there's any open patches of water, because if it didn't come back to shore, that might have killed him. and then my uncles might have killed me. But anyway, I would really enjoy hearing in the comments, if anybody's been on a farm, had a special pet, anything special about them. Like I say, I marvel at the differences in their personalities, their temperaments that makes them special. And these were two dogs that I remember from the farm. They were practically like members of the family. They just were into doing everything that we were doing on the farm. They were half wild, half tame, and free, and just enjoyed being around them. And it really added to the experience I feel of growing up summers on Lone Oak Farms. I'm going to stop the episode there. Thank you all for taking time to watch this. Really appreciate that. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.